All right. Well, here we are. What is the date here? It's the 11th of May.
I think it's May.
2020. It's on COVID time. I'm like trying to remember what the date is. And this is episode number 3 with Scott Zornig. And I've got Scott here coming in from Laguna Beach. Is that right? Are you not too far?
Right. Live down in San Clemente, but swim up at Laguna Beach.
San Clemente, California, and he started the LBOWS, which is the Laguna Beach Open Water Swimmers, in 1987 with Mike Turdeau. Is that right?
Mike Turdeau and Lynn Kuasek.
And that was 33 years later. You have now 400 open water swimmers who swim and train in the coves of Laguna Beach. So the favorite coves there are Tablerock, Woods Cove, Shaw's Cove, which I was lucky to be over there. What was that, about a year ago?
Yes.
And Crescent Bay and Emmy Bay. And we'll go into some great discussions about Shaw's Cove, because there's some pretty cool features there, water features. And I encourage you all to join Scott and the LBOWS out there, because it's insane. He's president of the Santa Barbara Channel Swim Association from 2008 to 2016, and a member from 2006 to 2016. He has completed over 20 marathon distance swims, Marathon Swimmers Federation finalist, Streeter Award in 2017, a USMS All American, and he's also a commentator in the marathon swim movie Driven. So this is a cool movie. Scott, why don't you tell me a little bit about this movie? Because I just started to look at some of the overview. There's a nice little feature on IMDb, but I want to hear from you. Tell me about this.
Well, first off, I'm honored that you selected to be on your 3rd episode, Talbot. I can think of hundreds of marathon swimmers that are a lot more deserving. But thank you for spending a little bit of time on what we're doing out here in Southern California. But back to that movie. So I was the president of the Santa Barbara Channel Swim Association from 2008, 2016. And a couple of guys came to me, and they'd never made a movie before, but they wanted to make a movie about marathon swimming. And they asked me for a couple of ideas. And so we went back and forth, and finally, we came up with the idea that we take 3 people, one person who was an established swimmer, set records, very fast, Evan Morrison, another 13-year-old girl who was a competitive swimmer, but she had never swum in the ocean before. Her name is Bioluminescence. And we took a 3rd person. This was a beginning swimmer, a mother of 2, and they would each select a course, and they would video them prior to the event, and then actually video the event and then the aftermath, and whether they were all successful or not. And since you haven't watched the movie, I won't tell you what the outcome is, but it does have a little bit of an exciting ending.
That's awesome. Well, I'll actually put up a link on my blog on Talbot TV, where you can find this particular interview on multiple sources for YouTube and Facebook and IGTV, which is Instagram's TV broadcasting network. And so I'll put a link so where you can buy this movie if you're interested in it, and also a link to the IMDb setting. But also, Scott, you've been involved in a bunch of swim camps, Swim Camp Catalina and the upcoming Swim Camp Mexico. Right.
So, gosh, I don't know how many years ago it was. Maybe it was 2013. Jamie Patrick, somebody everybody in the community knows, contacted me and said, Scott, let's do a swim camp. Do you have any ideas? And I said, absolutely, let's go out to Catalina. And so we did our first swim camp at Catalina, and it was so successful that we had 4 more. I think Jamie had got a little bit burnt out on, he's such a giver to the swimming community, but he got a little burnt out. And Mark Horowitz came along and said, Scott, Catalina's great, but we need to go down to Mexico. And he found a place down in Baja California Rancho
Wow.
Leonero. And so we stopped doing the swim camp at Catalina for the time being. And now we do them down in Rancho Leonero. And so this past March was supposed to be our 10th swim camp, but due to the pandemic, we made the decision to postpone it. And instead, we're going to do it in March of 2021. And we still have spots open, believe it or not. We capped it at 50 people. We sold out, but we decided since we're going so long in between camps, we're gonna add another 20 people to this camp and make it really special.
Very cool. Well, I'm hoping to be there because it sounds amazing, and I'm bummed I missed the Catalina. Maybe you'll start those up again.
We just might do that.
That's awesome. Well, I'll be. I've been driven on a boat or been on a boat through the Catalina Channel on a whale watch, but I have never actually set foot on Catalina. But I'm going to get that opportunity on September 16th.
It's a special place. I hope you get a chance to go out there.
Yeah, I'm not going to stay there very long because I'm just going to touch the shore and then swim back. So
good,
I'm looking forward to that. So when I first met Scott, I think we first met up in Vermont in Memphremagog, like one of the winter swim festivals, and I'll have to have a session just on that because I'm going to probably want to interview Phil White about that because that's just a whole nother craziness. But this is basically an event where a bunch of crazy people like Scott and I will cut open a 25 meter pool, 2 lanes, and have a 2-day swim meet with just our Speedos and 1 cap and some goggles in freezing water. And so when I met you there, you started talking about, the LBOWS, and you talked about this thing called the Giggle Crack. And I had that kind of in the back of my memory. A few years later, I ended up out in California, and I was, visiting my father for his 80th birthday. And I said, I got to get down to the LBOWS, got to track you down. So I showed up, and you took me into the Giggle Crack, and that blew my mind. So tell the folks about the Giggle Crack.
I will. So Laguna is a really special place, and I wish anybody that is involved in open water swimming had a chance to come out and swim with us in Laguna. I know there's special places all around the world, but and I've swam a lot of those places, but Laguna it's just a really neat place. And it's so special because we have so many different beaches and coves and rock formations, and we have caves and underwater tunnels and blowholes, and we have rocks that you can swim through the cracks. In this one particular area that you're talking about, the Giggle Crack, it's almost like a swimming pool that's cut into the rocks. And you go inside it. The conditions almost need to be perfect because if the tide's too high, you could get thrown out on rocks, and if it's too low, you're going to end up beached. But if it's just right, you can go in and have a lot of fun in it. And it's like a thrill ride. It's like going to the amusement park and getting pushed around inside this small pool of water.
It's very intense. What is it, about maybe 10 feet wide? And
I think so. And I think we did something crazy one year, and I think we got 19 people in there at the same time. But yeah, it's a lot of fun when the conditions are right. It's not for the faint of heart.
No.
We have some old time swimmers that have actually never been in it. So
well, on my first try there, I went through, and I trusted you, so I swam into it. And I thought I was gonna die. I was literally, I was, I'd grown up boogie boarding in Kauai and know the power of the waves. And the waves weren't that big. It was but as the water was coming in, and you swim to the end, and it's like a little swimming pool at the end, and you're right underneath this apartment complex, and the waves are coming in, and it's just crazy. It is just such a blast. But I had just an insane time, and was able to swim out and was able to live to tell the tale. So that was crazy. And then there's this other one your group just went through is called the Portage. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have another, it's Shaw's Cove, which is sort of our primary beach that we swim from. That's kind of our go-to place. There's really two different rock formations. There's the Giggle Crack, which we'll go into when the tide is right. But then there's also this area called the Portage. And it's probably a 75-yard crack through the rocks. And when it's, the only time you can swim through it is when there's low tide. And believe it or not, and I think you have a video maybe you want to show, but it's at low tide, you can actually swim all the way through it from one side to the other. And so far, we've never had anybody injured there, but
you never know.
We've had some close calls. We've had some close calls, especially when the waves, once in a while you get a road wave, they'll crash over one of those rocks, and it definitely gets the heart pumping.
So there's the Giggle Crack. That's a still, and then let's now play the video for that. By the way, this is the Swim Camp Mexico. I'll show that later, but let's watch. There's got two videos. One is entering, and the other one's exiting. So let's play the video for entering this thing. So I recognize those palm trees over there.
Yeah. So those swimmers are actually entering into the portage from Shaw's Cove.
Well, that's insane. That is awesome. Okay, so let's watch the video of them exiting. Looks like they're going against the current right there.
They very well could be. There are parts where you actually have to hold on to the seaweed, otherwise the current's going to push you back the other way.
That's nuts. That is nuts. So this is the flyer for the Swim Camp Mexico. I'll put this up on my blog.
And again, that's the flyer for this year, which didn't happen. Just if it had been a week earlier, we would have still had it, but everything sort of got closed down right about that time. So it's going to be the same date in 2021.
That's fantastic. That's
we
awesome.
have this special place. It's called Rancho Leonero. It used to actually be John Wayne's old fishing lodge. That's where John Wayne.
No way.
And all those guys used to go fishing down there in Baja back in the day. And so they've added on to it, and it's got a little bar, and I think they've got 32 rooms. And you're right there on the water on a reef, so it's very scenic. There's lots of swimming. It's safe. The food is absolutely amazing. And we, like I said, we've now been doing it down there for 5 years, and we'll continue to go back.
That is fantastic. Wow, that looks just so amazing. So let's segue into some other things. Now, you've been on some pretty amazing swims. I mean, I'll put your full bio up here, but you've done some swims up in Alaska. I think you were 6 miles in crystal clear water and 49-degree temperature water in Alaska in the summer of, was that 2018?
It was, correct.
Yeah. And you've done some, like swimming in Copenhagen and Denmark and, around the world. So of all of the places you swam, what was like probably the most exciting, or one of the most exciting?
Oh my gosh. Like you said, I've been really fortunate. I do a lot of travel for work, so I get to go and swim at a number of places. But I would probably say the most fun I ever had was in Ireland. I think it was 2015. My daughter was actually living there, and I went and visited her. And believe it or not, it was the month of January, and I was able to find some open water swimmers to go swim with in Iceland during the month of January. And I swam with them 2 days. The first day, the water was 37 degrees.
Wow.
I think we lasted about 17 minutes. And then the next day, the water had dipped down to 34 degrees. And I think I was in that maybe 6, 7, 8 minutes. But it was just exhilarating. And they do have a little bit of an advantage because of all the geothermal energy they have. The places they swim actually have jacuzzis outside, some of them even on the stand when you exit the water. And not only do they have jacuzzis, but they're different temperatures. So you can kind of warm your way back up. You go from that 37-degree water into an 85-degree jacuzzi, and then 90, 95, and it was really exciting. And the day I was there, I think we had about 50 people. I mean, they're very serious about their open water swimming. Yeah. And I probably had about 50 people show up, and I feel like I have 50 new friends.
Wow. Where in Ireland is this?
This was Iceland.
Oh, this is Iceland. Oh.
Yeah, if I said Ireland, I apologize, but it's Iceland.
Oh my God, yeah, Iceland. That's someplace I've never been. I'd really, really love to go to Iceland and swim there. That's a lot of volcanic activity there, right? And
right,
houses are here.
And it's just so beautiful to swim there. And you can swim in the ocean, but then there's also these beautiful lakes filled with glaciers, and they will go there and swim on the weekends as well. They really love to swim.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely on my bucket list. I would love to go to Iceland. For a while they were, if you were flying to Europe, they were like trying to get people to stop there on the way and stay a couple of nights.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I missed that opportunity, but I'll definitely have to go back again and try again to get out to Iceland. So that was probably one of the most exciting. Okay, now what about the most scariest? What was the most like frightening thing that has happened to you while you were swimming?
My gosh. There was one time, this is years ago, when a fellow marathon swimmer by the name of Jim Fitzpatrick, he and I decided to do a swim in Corona del Mar, which is a little bit north of Laguna, south of Newport Beach. Okay. And it was foggy when we went out, but it didn't, we could see where we were going. So we started swimming, and the fog rolled in, and it got thicker and thicker. And it got to the point where we got confused and we couldn't tell where we were.
Wow.
And because of the fog, we just became very disoriented. We were listening for the waves, and we thought it was in one direction, and we would swim and we wouldn't get there. So then we'd swim in another direction. And it just got to the point where we said, we got to stop swimming. We just really need to tread water and conserve our energy, because we don't know how long we're going to be out here. If this fog doesn't lift, we could be out here for hours.
Right.
I think it was probably about 45 minutes. And we were really getting concerned at that time, because we didn't know how far offshore we were. We didn't know which direction shore was. It was almost like a miracle. Out of the fog, a boat comes.
Wow.
And I mean, it was 10 feet from us, and it saw us, and the captain of the boat came to the side and says, "Hey, are you guys okay? Are you guys lost?" And we said, "Yeah, we really are." And he said, "You want to get on the boat?" And we said, "Well, if you could just point us in the direction of the shore, we'll try to swim back." And so he took a look at his readings and pointed in a direction, and we swam for probably 15, 20 minutes, and we finally got into shore. But
wow.
Yeah, that was one of our probably more frightening moments.
That sounds.
But I'm sure everybody's got a story like that.
Yeah. What about sharks? Have you ever run into sharks or been scared of any encounters?
I think the first incident I had with a shark was in 1999. I was doing a Maui Channel relay, and we had probably about 12-foot tiger shark that chased one of our swimmers out of the water. But I really never had any encounters with sharks in Southern California. Unless you went over to Catalina, you'd always see a leopard shark or maybe a blue shark. But what's really interesting, in the last 4 years, I've probably had maybe 8 to 10 good-sized sharks swim underneath me.
Really?
But they weren't interested. And in most of the cases, they seemed like they were scared, and they just sort of swam away. Yeah. They certainly didn't seem curious. They just left. So I guess that sort of made me feel better about it.
Yeah.
But they're out there, and you just try to keep your mind off of it. And but somebody always sees one. Usually once a month, somebody will have something swim underneath them.
That's cool. Yeah, that's my experience with sharks too. Like by the time I see them, they're like, when they notice me, they're like gone. But I'm always, nervous, especially in Florida, because the water is so murky. Sometimes I've got maybe like 6 inches of visibility, so I can see I can see my upper arm, but I can't see my hand or my forearm.
Well, you have to deal with bull sharks, and
Yeah.
we don't have those in Southern California.
No. Oh yeah, they could be nasty. Yeah, and then actually we had a great white here not long ago. They're very rare here in the Gulf, but occasionally they'll show up. But very rarely are there any shark attacks in Southwest Florida. They're mostly on the East Coast, on the Atlantic, and the northern part of Florida. So, like now, I want to find out. So tell me about like another experience. So you've been all over the world. You've been to Iceland. How about Europe? So tell me some of your European experiences.
Well, I did this swim in Copenhagen a couple years ago, which I fell in love with, and it was a swim around the Parliament in Denmark through the canals, and it just sounded really, really interesting to me. I think it's one of the largest swims in Europe. I believe they have something like 4,500 participants in this swim. It's 2 miles long. It's not super long by marathon swimming standards, but it was just an amazing swim as you're swimming around these buildings. I don't know how many hundreds of years old they were, through these canals that are equally as old.
Wow.
And a funny story about that swim is they told you to estimate your time for 2 miles, which I did. I think I probably entered a time that I was capable of doing when I was 20 or 30 years old, and not my mid 50s at the time. But so I ended up in the last heat, and that last heat consisted of the Danish Olympic swim team and national team.
Oh my God.
And I will tell you, I got last place out of everybody. But every one of them wore a wetsuit except me. So that kind of made me feel good.
Definitely. Awesome.
I definitely got the sympathy cheer when I came out of the water. The last person out of a 4,500 person race. But
what was the water temperature?
Actually, it wasn't that cold. I think it was 61 degrees, but people in Europe like to, except Ireland, the Irish don't, they don't wear their wetsuits, but a lot of people in Europe like to wear wetsuits.
That's true. Well, even US too. It depends on which group you're with, though.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, how about the cleanliness of the water? Was it clean or was it dirty?
I was pleasantly surprised. It was very clean.
Nice.
I know that a lot of those cities, you really shouldn't swim in the canal, but they say in Denmark and Copenhagen, definitely the water's clean enough that it gets flushed out, and I could see the bottom the entire way.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's a lot cleaner than swimming around Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
So have you ever done any either Manhattan or any of the 8 bridges stages?
So I did Manhattan the year after 9/11.
Oh wow.
And the water, and some people said that there was still debris in the water, even though it was, I guess, 9 months later that the swim took place after 9/11. But I did not feel well for a good couple of weeks after doing that race. It was a little bit dirty, and it smelled a little bit. But I've had a lot of friends that have done the swim since, and they've said the water's fine. So maybe I just happened to catch it on a bad day, or maybe there truly was debris in the water from the 9/11.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of people get sick. They'll take like, is it cipromycin or something like that, or
and tetanus shots,
all that stuff. I actually swam around it, no problem. I didn't get sick or anything, so that was I kind of lucked out. So we got Manhattan. What are some other exciting swims you've done? Because
I did Catalina. I swam between Lanai and Maui. This is one of my favorite swims, and I think I told you the story. I did a swim in 2001 from Anacapa Island to Ventura.
Okay.
And it's only 12.4 miles, but it was really special at the time. There's only 3 people had done it at the time that I did the swim. And it hadn't been done since 1975, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
And the few people that did do it told me not to do it. They said it's gotten really sharky, just let it go, find some other place to swim. But I just sort of had it in my head to do it, so I decided I would go ahead and attempt to swim. And then one of the people that was on my boat, a guy by the name of Brendan Hoffman, he had a friend that worked for NBC News, and he said, "Hey Scott, my buddy is a producer at NBC News, and he'd like to do a video on your swim." And at first I told him, "Nah, it's just not a good idea. I just do not want to fail on television." And after all these stories the people were telling me, I thought I had a 50-50 chance of making it. But he stayed on me, and he said, "Come on, Scott, just do it. So finally I relented. And so they brought a full production crew on. They interviewed me up until the swim. They interviewed me during the swim, and then I was successful. I crossed it, and they did a follow-up interview. So I thought that was it. They aired it on television. It was I don't know, maybe a 5 or 6 minute piece, and I didn't think anything about it. And then several months later, I got a call from my buddy, and he said, "Scott, you're not going to believe this." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Your video has been nominated for an Emmy Award for Best Produced Sports Documentary. This is in the year 2002. I go, "You've got to be kidding me." I didn't think it would have a chance to win, and so I just sort of wrote it off. But it was shortly after that it actually won the Emmy Award for Best Produced Sports Documentary.
That
it's
is
on
awesome.
YouTube if you ever care to watch it. But it was a really neat event for me, and the swim was just wonderful. I had perfect conditions, and that's probably a swim I won't ever forget.
So I can watch this because, and the viewers here can watch this by purchasing it online. I'll provide the link. But how about that Emmy Award documentary? How can you get access to that?
It's on YouTube, and I just Google my name, Scott Zornig, and Anacapa, and it's on there.
Awesome. I'll put a link to that as well.
Very
cool. Very cool. Awesome. So got time for a couple more questions. What would you like? I mean, you got the audience here. What do you want to talk about? There's there's so many exciting things going on in the swimming community. Maybe also tell me about what you've been doing with this whole COVID-19. How has that been affecting your swim life?
Well, it's been a real challenge out here because initially the cities where we swim closed the beaches, but the state beaches stayed open, but the state closed the parking lots. So they made it difficult to park there.
Yeah.
So initially we went to the state beaches. We had to park a half mile and then eventually even farther away because they kept pushing the parking back. But if you wanted to swim badly enough and you're willing to walk the distance, you could find a place to park, and then you could do your swim. And then eventually the state beaches opened up.
Yep.
So then thankfully, the city beaches opened up and the state beaches closed completely. So then we were able to go back to the city beaches and swim. So it's been a constant challenge, but I'm probably getting in a short swim every other day. So
that's great.
We're kind of keeping the feel of the water, but nobody's going long and far these days. We're just happy to get wet.
Exactly. And can you ride your bicycle to the beach?
You can, especially if you live in Laguna Beach, you can. But most of the swimmers that swim in Laguna Beach do not live there. We're all kind of surrounded, so it might be a 5 mile, 10 mile, 20 mile ride for most of the people that belong to LBOWS.
Definitely, yeah. So, what else? Tell me what else is new. What do you have any goals? Any?
I had a swim I wanted to do this year. I wanted to go out to the Mediterranean. I wanted to swim from France to Italy.
Oh, wow.
There's 2 islands out there. One's part of France, the other's part of Italy. It was Sardinia and Corsica,
Uh-huh.
but that sort of has been put on hold. So really, no plans until next year. I think this is a year many of us are taking off, and we'll maybe resume some things next year. How about yourself? Do you have any plans for this year?
Well, I've got a date for Catalina. That's September 16th.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I was supposed to do it last year, but got it postponed to this year. And now with I just got my application approved. So, but who knows what the situation with COVID-19 will be like. So it might get pushed off another year, but hopefully it comes through.
I think you may be good to go then.
Yeah.
I think they'll open it up, and that's a good time of year to do that swim.
Yeah, I think the water will be like 70 degrees, so it won't be too cold. And yeah, last year on the date that I should have swam, it would have been just perfect. It was pretty calm, and it was perfect temperature, but I didn't have all the right paperwork in place. And
yeah. Well, the good thing about Catalina, there's a lot of perfect days.
Yeah.
So it's one of those swims where 7 times out of 10 the water's fairly accommodating.
So did you see any wildlife when you swam it?
I thought I saw a blue shark. I was
Yep.
convinced I saw a blue shark, and then after my swim, I sort of questioned whether I saw anything at all, and I probably was just hallucinating.
Yeah.
But I was convinced at that time I saw something.
Yeah. I've heard of people, with like dolphins coming underneath them, and the what's it called? That's phosphorescence. It's
the bioluminescence.
Luminescence. Yeah. So the bioluminescence. I've seen some videos recently, and I maybe saw some on the LBOWS WhatsApp chat. Is that right now active in California?
It's starting to die down, but it's been going on for the last 2.5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I have not seen it like this in decades. I mean, it has been a long time since we've seen it, and it's incredible. And in fact, you go out to the beach at night, everybody's trying to practice their social distancing, but there are literally hundreds of people that are just watching these blue waves crash onto the shore.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's mesmerizing. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it just glows. Yeah, I've seen like pictures of surfers and stuff like that. It's just
right.
It's crazy to watch. It's definitely a magical experience. Awesome.
But it's died down now, and I think it might be another 20 or 30 years before we see it again. So.
And I heard another story of someone. I think this is Greg O'Connor. You know Greg?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he was telling me a story that when he did Catalina, like he had to go, jump off the boat and swim over to the rocks and climb up onto the rocks. And they shined a spotlight because it's in the middle of the night, right? You're swimming, and it's pitch dark. So they shine this spotlight, and then the flying fish started flying in the light, and then the seals started trying to catch the flying fish, and so he had to swim. That was the start of the swim.
I was observing for a swim one time and saw that happen, and it's crazy. I mean, fish that were literally landing inside the boat because the seals were chasing them out of the water, and they really can fly. I couldn't believe it, but
yeah, they got little wings and they can kind of glide.
Yeah,
that's nuts. That is nuts. Well, thank you so much, Scott. This has been a real pleasure. And I'll be posting this online as soon as I get it all the post-production done and include any links. Send me anything else that you want me to include in the blog post. And I want to once again thank you so much for your time, and keep swimming.
Thank you, Talbot. Appreciate it, and make sure you get out here soon. Okay.
I will definitely be out there as soon as I can.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.